we know now about all the towns and cities where this went on, all of the stories about councillors or social services being told to shut up, MPs even told, don't go there, Dan Cryer and others, don't even mention it, etc. All that information on one day apparently was all put on Keir Starmer's desk, as we now know, because it wasn't like that, because that's not how it works, that's not how a story works. So it's not a defence of him today, but back then, clearly, Starmer said himself, girls were let down. But I guess, you know, in addition to cover up, if that's the right word, there was also this sort of lack of the entirety of the story that we see it now didn't quite exist in the same form then.
Yeah, and Kevin Bain always talks about joining dots, and I think that's right. You know,
Absolutely.
This was happening in dozens of towns all around the country, and yet, for whatever reason, people weren't willing to treat it in its entirety. So you had these focused inquiries in town by local authorities, which is fine, but there wasn't sort of overarching attempt to ask, well, why is this happening? Why is it happening in so many places, and what can we stop it and bring those responsible to justice?
Yeah, the lack of joining the dots is really where a big part of the story is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the strength of arguing for a proper inquiry specifically into grooming gangs, because the J inquiry was about child sexual abuse in its entirety. The grooming gangs part of it, but it wasn't an inquiry solely into grooming gangs. So I think that clearly that's what the Conservative wants.
And let's bring it back to social media, the fact checker story. We began with that, but we didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of what Zuckerberg and co are doing. It's interesting with this particular story, Kevin, the perpetrators, how many perpetrators were involved in the grooming gangs? I went on social media to try and see what they were saying about it. The numbers go between 220 and 752,000. So there is the speculative nature.
It's probably somewhere in between.
Yes, it's definitely
safe to say.
Absolutely.
It's in that sort of ballpark. It's that hell of a big ballpark.
Indeed. So getting rid of fact checkers, this is Zuckerberg trying to go, oh my God, Trump's coming back. I'm not the most popular person at Trump Towers. I've got to change my thing here. I'm going to be a bit more like Elon.
Well, quite exactly what I'm saying. He's trying to ape Elon Musk.
Yep.
Which you consider that Zuckerberg threw Trump off Facebook previously because he didn't think he'd be coming back. Obviously in the wake, I think that was after the January 6th, the coup attempt. Trump was persona non grata, and Meta or Facebook was a very different beast in those days. They could see which way the wind was blowing. Clegg was his right-hand man. It was seen as a liberal social media platform. Now completely changed. Trump's back, and you have to cozy up to the incoming administration. It's quite embarrassing, a really embarrassing U-turn by Mark Zuckerberg. He's contributed $1 million to the inauguration fund for Donald Trump, and Nick Clegg has been replaced by a Trump-friendly person. Zuckerberg, and you're right now he's getting rid of fact checkers because they're biased. And I didn't know that facts could be biased. I thought a fact
was a fact. Yeah, you think so, wouldn't you?
And I heard someone, an expert on these matters on the radio this morning, was talking about how it's not as if these fact checkers were all liberals or lefties. There was conservative fact checkers at Meta as well, to try and make sure it's balanced, but they're all gone. And now they're aping X or Twitter with this new community notes system where it's up to the users themselves to correct.
But that in itself creates this minefield of nonsense. I saw one the other day where somebody corrected somebody on something, and then this has been community noted, and then that starts another thread of conversation. We don't believe the community notice is simply not true. And you think, well, hang on, this is not the bastion of way. It's not the oracle of truth.
No, absolutely not. No, you're right.
There's confusion.
Yeah, the community notes are themselves pretty biased. You see Victorians getting community notes. Well, certainly just as soon as used to get community notes all the time.
Absolutely.
People who didn't like the system. So it's it makes it appear more a bit like the Wild West rather than influences.
One of the downsides of politicians, of course, with social media is that old tweets can re-emerge that they'd probably even forgotten they wrote. This, I think, this has just happened as well. A tweet from Jess Phillips. You saw it. So this is what Jess Phillips, who of course is now under the spotlight because of what Elon Musk not very kindly said about her. She was a rape apologist.